Hey everybody, good morning. What's going on? How are you? Is it 7? What's my phone say? 7 o'clock. All right, let's get started. I see that we're starting off with 6 people. Good morning, everybody. Great to see you. I was wondering if there might be anybody new on here today. Blue 70 did a Zoom chat with the Brooklyn Tri Club last night. It had like 27 people, so it's kind of maybe one of these days someone from New York will show up. So go ahead and get warmed up. I started a time. It's going to be a 45-minute workout. It'll probably go a few seconds longer. Starting in easy gear. Hit play on the comp trainer. And then you can just slowly start warming up. For anybody that wants to get in a longer workout, really a great way to do it is just to hop on your bike like 10 minutes early, just ride aerobically. That'll give you an extra warm-up plus more time in the aerobic zone, which never hurts. So today's lesson, there's something I've been thinking a lot about. Gotta find it. Yes, lesson number 6. So this has been a mantra of mine for, probably since, I think it was like 1998. After 4 or 5 years of a lot of triathlons, I kind of took a summer off and I didn't put any races on the schedule, and then my motivation just went, whoo. So my mantra is train to race, race to train. Having a race in your calendar just far enough into the future is an excellent way to motivate yourself. Talk to other triathletes and you'll find out how common this strategy is. You also learn that others struggle with finding ways to motivate themselves. It's much easier to skip workouts without a race on the horizon. So it may seem like an odd lesson right now because there are no races. And I know several of you on here have races that have recently been postponed and have some other races that are out in the future and may happen, they may not happen. So here's what I think that we need to do for the next couple months, possibly. Hey Stephanie, welcome. You got your trainer working. Maybe, God, I hate to say it, but maybe up to a year. I mean, who knows, right? Nobody knows. But I think we need to come up with ways to motivate ourselves that are outside of racing. There are things like virtual racing. I signed up for, I'm not a fan of virtual racing typically because unless they lower their prices, you pay a lot of money to go exercise on your own. But I did sign up for a virtual swim series. So it's a sprint distance swim in May, Olympic distance in June, half Ironman in July, and a 2.4 mile swim in August. It's $15, and I don't get anything for it other than the motivation, right? But I know that by doing that, that's one more thing that will encourage me to get out and swim in the open water, which, if you know me, you know I'm a pool guy, and I don't really love swimming in the open water. But something like that on my horizon will motivate me, right? So it's a way for me to bring in motivation now that races are 50-50 at best. So other ways you can do it, like if there's something that you have wanted to do, we had 8 people. If there's something that you want to do that you haven't done, maybe because you've been racing, like maybe you want to go on a epic hike that's also, in a lot of ways, it's an endurance event. It's an endurance test. Maybe think about putting that on your calendar. For myself, I turned the big 5-0 this year. So my birthday weekend in August, I plan to ride 50 miles and follow that up with a 5K, right? 50-50. Something like that. There's another workout that I think would be epically hard and something I've never done. The John Wayne Tunnel, I think it's called, the top of I-90. You could take that gravel trail away from Duval. So from Duval through the tunnel and back, would be like 100 miles on gravel, which is, pretty damn epic day, right? And something that I probably wouldn't do on my own. So putting something like that out, at the end of September, somewhere in September, so that I have 4 or 5 months to train for it. And if I put it on my calendar and I think about it, it's like, I want to do this, I'm going to commit to this, then it sort of forces me to get out on the bike, maybe when I don't want to get out on the bike, right? So find something that you can put on your calendar, something that inspires you, something that maybe you always wanted to do, or maybe it's something you've never even know about, but you're going to go research it. And really, if you're into running, a really epic 22-mile run is to run through the enchantments, and it's just gorgeous. And a lot of times it's hard to get a backpacking permit, but you can do it in a day and go in and out. So sometimes people will go, it's point to point, requires a little bit of like driving up, dropping a car, having another car. So there's some logistics, but it's that kind of thing that if you did something like that, it's something that you would remember for the rest of your life, just like, maybe you do a lot of your longer, ultra marathons, half Ironman kind of stuff. So we don't need to rely on races, and I think that's a good strategy, at least moving into the future, which brings me into a good point about next Monday, is we're doing what I call a benchmark test. So we're 6.5 minutes in. If you haven't already, just shift to a slightly harder gear to slowly ramp up your warm-up intensity. But the benchmark test is another great way of providing motivation. So we're going to go for 10 minutes after a nice solid warm-up. But 10 minutes, best sustained pace. And then we're going to come back to that every 5 or 6 weeks. And so the great thing about benchmark workouts is when you see that you've improved over the last time, a little light bulb moment, it's like, hey, it makes it worth getting up and getting on these cycling sessions twice a week because I'm becoming a stronger cyclist. It also, when you have that carrot out there, and maybe there's one day when you don't really want to get up, but you think, oh, I have that benchmark workout coming up. Sometimes that's just a tiny bit of difference between putting on your shoes and going back to bed. So sometimes that motivation is just razor thin. So love seeing all the comments on there. If you're new, go ahead and just say your name. If you have access, like for me, I'm a long way away from my computer, but you don't have to say anything. So if you are new, you can take the intensities down a little bit. This is more of a tempo ride. The new buzzword for it is sweet spot, which is above aerobic up to, some say 85, some say 90% of FTP. So it's like your, not your all out, but below that. So efforts that you could do for pretty easily, like, at least an hour in most cases. So your FTP in theory, is the best sustained effort you can maintain for 60 minutes. And threshold is usually thought to be like the best effort you can maintain for 45 to 60 minutes. That's why like a 10K, for most people takes on average 45 to 60 minutes. Obviously some people run it sub 30, some people run it an hour and 30. But for the average, it's about 45 to 60 minutes for a 10K. And if you go as hard as you can go, then that serves as an excellent threshold test. Okay, so we're 9 minutes in. 1 more minute of warm up. Then we're gonna do we're gonna do 2 times. It's gonna go a little longer than 30 seconds, where we do the low cadence like we did last week. And then we're going to do 2 times 30 seconds of high cadence. And then we'll get into the workout. So the main set of the workout is going to be 4 minutes. Just write it uncomfortable. Again, if you're new and you want to dial that down, you can go just below uncomfortable. And then, so 4 minutes of that, and then 2 minutes harder. So we're gonna go 2 minutes harder than wherever you were. It doesn't have to be all out, doesn't have to be super hard. And then we get 2 minutes recovery. If the 2 minutes recovery isn't enough for you, when we start up that next 4 minutes, you can take an extra minute and recover. So these are ways that you can modify the workout. Okay, we're coming up with 10 seconds to go. So everybody get in your big chain ring. Get in your easiest gear in the big chain ring, which again, easiest gear in the big chain ring means that you have 2 gears next to your wheel that you have not used, okay? Because that would be cross gearing. So go ahead and maybe shift like 3 or 4 gears harder. I'm gonna start our 40 seconds. So what I'm looking for here is a slow pedal turnover with continuous resistance all the way through the pedal stroke. You want to think about pulling through the bottom of the pedal stroke and then coming over the top of the pedal stroke. What we don't want to do is think about pushing from 12 to 3 on a clock, so pushing down. So we want the pedal stroke to come from here and over the top. And you can actually relax on the down from 12 to 3. Okay, so feel that resistance. It's not super hard. You're maybe breathing a little bit. Okay, so now let's shift back to your easiest big chain ring gear, which if you look back, you should easily see 1 gear uncovered, and then there's 1 more gear and the chain is right next to that. So leave those 2 gears alone, and that's your easiest big chain ring gear. Because if we go all the way to the wheel, then the chain is cross-chained and it puts extra stress on the chain, and we don't want that. So if you're out riding and you're in this gear and you're like, well, I need it to be easier, what you need to do is you need to shift to the small chain ring, which means you're going to need to shift probably 3 or 4 times harder in the back before you make that shift, otherwise your knees will fly off your body. Okay, here we go. We're going to go number 2. So let's go like 3 or 4 clicks harder. You can go 5 if you want. Nice slow turnover. If you have cadence, you're going to be probably like below 70. So just constant muscular tension. You can see I'm not working super hard. I'm not really trying to bring my cadence up. I'm just basically creating a neuromuscular pattern of cycling, of connecting the mind-body feel to the pedal stroke. And then over time, we'll start doing these a little bit harder. Okay, go ahead and recover. So, big chain ring, easiest gear. Next, we're going to do 2 times 30 seconds of high cadence. So, a couple quick reminders. A little bit of flexing your elbows. Make sure your fingers can wiggle. If all of your weight's in your hands, draw your belly button in so that you're pushed more back towards your butt. And then if you find yourself tense here, elongate your spine. So try to be relaxed when we do these. If your body starts to bounce a lot, you really have to bring in all those cues. Okay, so you can stay in this gear or you can go 1 gear, maybe 2 gears harder. Here we go. 30 seconds, high cadence, which means well above 90. If you're getting to that place where you're bouncing around a lot, switching 1 gear harder will probably take care of that. Okay, recover. So you can either just start spinning easier, you can go to 1 gear easier, spin easier, grab some water. So 1 more of those. Okay, so think about that gear you're in. If it was good gear, stay there. If you want to go, harder, easier, go ahead and make that change now. Here we go, 30 seconds. Bring that cadence up. If you don't have cadence on your bike, you can just look at my legs and my knees and try to match that. All right, relax. Whew. Super stoked that we have 9 people. I'll have to do some sleuthing and see where the additional people came from. Okay, before we start our main set, we're just going to do 1 minute at our upper aerobic, which would be about 75% of FTP if you have power. Ready? Here we go. So I'll walk you through it. Go ahead and bring your cadence up in the gear you're in. Pay attention to your breathing. We want it, you can start shifting gears just one at a time and stay there for 10 seconds. Paying attention to your breathing. We want to get to the point where we are right at that place where it's just starting to become a little bit labored in breathing, but it's by no means hard. So we can talk, but you know, there's definitely like little breaks that need to happen. Okay. We're gonna go for 4 minutes. You can be either slightly uncomfortable or you can be solidly uncomfortable. So moderately hard. If you have percentage, 80% of FTP would be great. Ready, here we go. 4 minutes. So it's kind of a long time compared to what we've been doing. You can go also like 2 minutes, slightly uncomfortable, and then go to 2 minutes uncomfortable. So that's another way to break up these 4 minutes. We don't want to go right out of the gate too hard. So if anything, we want to build. So you can just continue to build through these 4 minutes. And one of the easiest ways to do it is keep your cadence at 90 and then switch gears. And every time you go to a harder gear, if you keep your cadence up, you'll notice your intensity goes up. So we definitely should also notice that like the breathing is a little bit more labored than that last minute. You know, you can tell in my voice, taking more pauses between words, but I can also still talk. Concentration wise, you know, it just takes a little bit of concentration, not full concentration. I just found myself sinking in, and so you saw I kind of brought myself up. I'm going back to music. This is where, you know, like when the concentration becomes harder, I think you start to appreciate distractions like music or motivating forces like music. That's also a sign that you're probably working appropriately. So hopefully you have some good music as well. All right, we got 1:45 here. Let's get into that. Just uncomfortable, and then we'll go 2 minutes where it's a little bit harder. Really all you have to do for the last 2 minutes is change one gear, maybe two. So for me right now, I can tell my concentration needs to be on my pedal stroke. I could see and feel my pedal stroke slow down. And now as we're 3 minutes in, it requires a lot more concentration to maintain this. But it's still not all out. It's not, like Mondays are generally a harder day for us. So in about 20-ish seconds, we're going 2 minutes harder. So if your cadence is not at 90, first thing you should do prior to switching gears is bring your cadence up and then switch gears. Okay, ready? We're going 3, 2, 1. Here we go. 2 minutes. So this should be like a 1 to 2 word effort, but you should still be able to get some words out. So if you can't, it's probably too high of an intensity. Whew. 40 seconds. Whew. 5 seconds. Okay. Whew. Small chain ring. Find a gear that's takes all the tension out, but you can still spin your legs. Whew. So we got 2 minutes recovery. When we start back up with our 4 minutes, if you need more recovery, take a minute into that 4 minutes. It's not about other people. It's about you improving yourself. And if you need 3 minutes, you need 3 minutes. Maybe you need 4 minutes. You can also, if you decide you only need 2 minutes, you can do those first 2 minutes so you can have 2 step-ups. So just below uncomfortable, uncomfortable, harder than uncomfortable. So moderately hard is in the middle, a little bit less than moderately hard, and a little bit over moderately hard. Over moderately hard would be between moderately hard and hard, but not hard. Between, or lower than moderately hard would be between moderate and moderately hard, but more than moderate and less than moderately hard. So it really kind of doesn't matter. It's just about, what words we use. It's about you identifying that effort. So 40 seconds-ish. Get some hydration. Again, on a workout like this, pretty close to a bottle, 80%, maybe through 1 bottle would be advised. Water is fine since the workout's not longer than an hour. I use Scratch just because I like the taste. All right, we're coming up on our 2-minute recovery. So pick your gear. For most of you, it'll be the big chain ring. Here we go. So either slowly start ramping up to uncomfortable, or you can stay for 2 minutes, slightly uncomfortable, or you can do the first minute more recovery, okay? Get there with cadence, and then get there with gear changes. You're gonna notice too, because we just went through one, you know, this one is bound to feel a little bit harder, as will the third feel harder than this one. So if you're thinking about it like in terms of race pace, where we're at right now would be more indicative of how you would race a 70.3 / half Ironman. It would be below how you would race an Olympic distance pace, and it would be above where you would ride for an Ironman pace. So your Ironman pace effort should be lower than your half Ironman, which should be lower than your Olympic. Okay, so think about yourself riding a half Ironman, 56 miles. Obviously, if you don't have the fitness where you haven't done a lot of long bike rides, you know, your answer to that would be, I'm gonna go a lot slower. And that's fair. What we want to do in training is we want to build up, you know, that ability to ride longer than race distance, so that when you do ride at that race distance, you can ride a little bit faster. But thankfully for most of us, we're getting into the warmer season where it's easier to start extending our rides. You know, it's challenging to do longer than an hour and a half, 2 hours in February when it's 38 and raining. But like last Saturday, it's gorgeous here in Seattle. So much easier to go out for 3 hours or longer. All right, so minute 45 of the first 4 minutes. One more minute, then we go 2 minutes. So 1 more minute, uncomfortable, not painful. Sometimes standing up just changes the muscle groups, so you can try that. Okay, now we're going to take it up to, in 30 seconds, we're going to take it up to a place that's above what you would ride for a half Ironman. And you can be right below Olympic distance or even right at Olympic distance. Look at that, 4 minutes gone by. Almost. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. 2 minutes. Take it up a notch. If you're not at 90, bring your cadence up. If you're at 90, shift to a harder gear. This is also a place where if you can find that space between toggling between gears, you know, when your cadence slows down, one gear easier, bring your cadence back up, get a micro recovery. As soon as you start feeling better, one gear back down, gets a little harder. So find those 2 gears that you need to toggle between. It helps keep, you know, one is slightly too hard, one slightly too easy. Nice job. I can tell in myself, not only makes my breathing hard, there's things I want to say, but I don't have the breath. So, Mr. Right, please. 30 seconds. All right, so place your gearing in the middle of your cog set in the back if you're in the big chain ring. Now recover. This hits your left side to go into the small chain ring. So small chain ring somewhere in the middle of the gear set on the back is probably ideal for this recovery. What I wanted to say was that I knew I was in the right zone because I was really having to focus on my pedal stroke. You know, it required brain power to keep my pedals turning over. So as that concentration becomes more intense, we know we're moving up that perceived exertion of that intensity scale. All right, one more. Definitely make sure you're getting hydrated. Okay, so same thing. On the first 4 minutes, if you need more of a break, take an extra minute. You can do 2 minutes, slightly uncomfortable, 2 minutes uncomfortable. If it's the last one and you still feel fresh, go for the first 4 minutes, uncomfortable. As always, this is where you make it appropriate for you. My challenge will be not talking for the first 4 minutes so that I ride harder. Okay, we're going in 5 seconds. So I'm gonna get in the big chain ring. Get ready to go. Here we go. Cadence up. 4 minutes. Nice job. Three minutes in. 1 minute left here, and 2 harder minutes. All right, 3 seconds, then we go to 2 minutes harder. Ready? Here we go. Try a harder gear, try a harder cadence, faster cadence. Try both. So my effort was good. I noticed my cadence was low. So I went 1 gear easier, bring my cadence up. Now I gotta fight to keep my effort. All right, last 55 seconds. Can you do 1 gear harder? You don't have to stay there. Maybe just a few seconds. Oh, 30 seconds left. Five-ish seconds. Nice work. Go ahead and recover. Small chain ring, very easy cycling. Sweating something fierce. Whew. So a lot of times you might see when I stand up, what you might not be seeing is I almost always will go 1 gear harder on my right, because when you stand up, you have more force and you have more power. So if you ever stand up and you find that your legs, and they stop at the bottom, you maybe need to go 2 gears harder so that it'll have more resistance coming back up at you. But when you do that, you can really gain a little bit more power and leverage on the pedal strokes. And so then when I sit down, so I shift 1 or 2 gears harder, stand up, 4 or 5 pedal strokes, sit down. Immediately upon sitting down, I go 1 gear easier, because now I can bring my cadence back up. Just sitting down in itself will bring more power to your pedal stroke because you were standing up. But the combination of the two, sitting down and 1 gear harder, you can really get your legs spinning again. I'm going to give you another little tip that I picked up on my last outside ride. So I talk a lot about how maybe when you switch between the small chainring and the big chainring, there's an accompaniment that needs to happen on the rear derailleur. So like if you're going to go from the big chainring to the small chainring, that's going to be a big jump. And so at the same time, you're going to need to move your rear derailleur towards the outside of your bike to create actually a little bit more resistance, because there's so much of a drop in resistance from the big chainring to the small chainring. That's such a massive drop, right? That we need to adjust for that in the back. Well, while I was out riding, I was thinking about that and thinking about these sessions in terms of coaching. And then at the same time, the hill was going slightly up. So I didn't have to adjust as much in the back, because when I switched from my big chainring to my small chainring, because I saw the hill was going up, the grade of the road accounted for some of that resistance, right? Because the grade in the road's going up, that's really the same as a gear change. So I only had to switch, when I went from big chainring to small chainring, like 1 or 2 gears in the back, because the road adjusted for that third gear change, right? It'd be the same way if I was going downhill. You know, in that case, I'd be going from the small chainring to the big chainring, because then I'd picking up speed. But it could be the case that I may not need to make any adjustments on the right, you know, because of the road might account for some of that. So it's just things to look out for when you're out there. It's different when you're riding flat than when you're riding real roads, because the grade of the road changes everything. So anyway, need to get my bike cadence working. Yes, you do. Especially for indoor riding and outdoor riding, but cadence can be, so we're just warming down. In case I didn't say that, you haven't figured it out. I'm sure you figured it out. Cadence can be critical, especially if you are just learning how to shift gears. One of the easiest ways to learn how to shift gears is just keep your cadence at 90. And if your cadence ever drops below 90, shift to an easier gear. If your cadence ever goes above 90, shift to a harder gear, right? So that's a really great way to learn how to shift. But inside, especially in those harder efforts, you know, like I said, there's 2 ways to bring your intensity up. One is just bring your cadence up, and then the other is shifting to a harder gear. So, and we want to play around with those 2, because we really want to strive to cycle, you know, above 85, more 90, rather than like 80, right? So just becoming aware of it. And then oftentimes when you ride with cadence, the more you ride with cadence, the more you get dialed in, and the less you actually need a cadence meter. So it's kind of inverse relationship in that way. Like, I still use my cadence when I'm riding outside, but a lot of times I just look down and it's at 90 and I'm not surprised. But then there's times where maybe I'm tired, or I'm doing a work set, and then it's good to have. But I definitely am a big fan of it indoors. Okay, we got 1:45 left. So one question that I'm gonna have coming up is, at least for Washington, the going back to work may happen in June. Some of you are already back to work, but I think the 7 o'clock time has worked pretty well, probably because if you have to work at 8, you can just go right to work without, you know, an extra hour commute. But if you feel like, well, either way, if you like the 7 o'clock, or if you feel like moving it up in time to 6:45, 6:30 would be beneficial, you can go ahead and let me know that. Let me know either way. It's always good to get feedback on what you guys are looking for. And that might change based on, you know, how the jobs situations changes for people. My good friend Marian's on here, and she gets up at like 4 a.m. So we're not starting at 4:30. Sorry, Marian. She'd be ready to go at 4:30. But, you know, maybe 6. It's really early for me, but it's one of those things that, like anything, if you just rally and once you're up, it's not so bad. So So I am open to that. We'll keep these next three, well, this one, next two, next week, Monday and Wednesday at 7. And then as we get to the end of June, kind of think about that. All right, 15 seconds. Thanks again, everybody. Charmaine, about 6:30. Are you an early riser too? You just need to get to work. Oh, here it goes. Everybody's like 6:30, 6:30, 6:30. So maybe after this next week, because I already posted 7 o'clock, we can try 6:30. All right, that's it. 46 minutes. Whew, great job, everybody. It's good. Monday was, I think, harder, more intense, but this was hard too. All right. 7 is good. Sweet. Thanks, everybody. See you.